Gunfire and audio messages from a vehicle warning it would explode in 15 minutes. That's what one resident says she awoke to Christmas morning before she saw a massive explosion near her home. I want to get an eyewitness report from the scene. Betsy Williams joins me now. Betsy, thanks so much for being with us, and I'm sorry we're talking under these circumstances. I understand you were woken up, you say, by what sounded like gunfire. Explain what you heard and what time this was.
It was sometime between 4:30 and 5 a.m. I'm not exactly sure the first time we heard the gunshots. It sounded like an automatic weapon. It was very loud, and it woke me up. It woke us up, and we didn't do anything to start with because you just wake up after you've heard that. Well, then we waited a few minutes, and it happened again, and so we called 911.
The first time, just to be clear, the first time you heard it, how many shots did you hear in a row?
I think it was, I didn't really count them, but it was about probably 8 to 12.
Okay.
It was bam, 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 like that. And it was very loud.
And then do you have a sense of how much time
between the second time?
How much time elapsed between the first burst and the second time you heard it?
It seemed like it was probably longer than it actually was, and so maybe it was 5 minutes,
okay,
maybe 10.
Okay.
And then it happened again, and then we called 911. Well, then when it happened the third time, and we called 911 back again just to make sure, and there were responders who had already come down there after we called the first time. And we looked out the window, and there was this white RV that was parked just across the street.
Mm-hmm.
And so it started playing this message, evacuate now. This vehicle contains a bomb, and it will explode. And I think they may have been playing some other things. It was a mechanized woman's voice. It was computerized. Mm-hmm. And
so it didn't sound like a woman had recorded it herself. It sounded somehow computerized.
It sounded like it was a computerized thing. You know how you have those automated calls and you have automated stuff, and that's what it sounded like. And that went on for a good long while, because by that time we called 911 again, wanting to know what should we do,
And what did they tell you?
Do? And they were trying to get information from the police who were down there to try and figure out what they needed to tell us. Well, in the meantime, we started gathering up our stuff. I had to get my cat. I had my 85-year-old sister who was staying in another apartment. We run short-term rentals on this floor, and we didn't have any guests. But my son was visiting up here, my sister visiting here, and they were in two different apartments, and from the one that I've lived in for 15 years. And so then they started the countdown. And
do you know? Sorry to interrupt.
Evacuate now.
Do you know what time the countdown started roughly?
I think the countdown probably started sometime around 10 till 6.
Okay.
Or 5 till 6, something like that, because we at 11, when there were still 11 minutes left, we got on the elevator and went downstairs, and by the time we got to our garage where our car was parked on First Avenue, the last thing we heard was there were 8 minutes left to evacuate. And
so the recording is counting down minute by minute?
Yes, it was counting down. It was saying you have 15 minutes to evacuate. And then, and it would say that over and over. And then you have 14 minutes to evacuate.
So during that, sorry to interrupt, but just to be clear. So when it would say you have 15 minutes to evacuate, it would say that over and over the course of a minute. And then it would say you have 14 minutes, and it would say that over and over?
Yes.
Wow. That must be terrifying.
That all the way down. And I didn't hear it anymore after 8 minutes because we were in the car.
I mean, that must be terrifying.
It was absolutely terrifying. And I told my family yesterday, I said, I think I'm just going to spend all day Christmas in my pajamas. But, I didn't mean that I wasn't going to have anything else to put on, because we walked out of there with our pajamas and our cat.
This is not how you expected to spend the day in your pajamas. You were expecting a more relaxing day.
Right.
Right.
And we had all of our Christmas stuff set up, and in fact, our Christmas tree and everything is in the apartment that overlooks the river. It's a larger apartment that overlooks the Cumberland River, and so we went back around there after the explosion because we left. What happened was that I'm sorry I didn't finish this. The countdown started, and we went and got in our car, and we left and went across the river to Nissan Stadium and parked there for several minutes. And after we knew that the time had passed where the bomb was going to go off, the 15 minutes had passed, we went, well, that must have just been somebody's sick idea of a joke. And we got back on Korean Veterans Boulevard and turned down 2nd Avenue, heading north to come back down there because we were thinking, we'll just go home. And, of course, then the bomb exploded while we were on our way back down there, and we saw that thing. The fireball went all the way up past the AT&T, above the AT&T building. Everything everything shook. It was quite the blast. Well, I pulled up at 2nd Avenue and Broadway and watched that. Well, all these emergency vehicles, fire trucks, everything's coming down this way. So I turned right onto Broadway and then turned left right onto 1st Avenue. And, of course, 1st Avenue was completely littered with broken glass and metal pieces, window framing, wood, where that blast had blown out the backs of the building. And so I drove up to our building. I drove as far up to our building through all the glass and took a couple of pictures, and our Christmas tree was still on. And we could see the Christmas tree through the window where it was just still burning.
And we've been showing some of your pictures. Let me just ask you, if we'll just go back, when the countdown, you said the countdown started around 5:50, 5:55. By the time you were parked and waiting for the explosion, when the explosion actually happened, do you know what time that was? The reports we have were 6:32 a.m.
Somewhere around like 6:28, 6:25, something. I don't know exactly what time that was because I didn't. We're watching this explosion, so I didn't.
Sure.
I did not check.
Did you have a sense of how much time had elapsed from the time you thought there would be an explosion to the time there actually was an explosion?
Probably 10 minutes.
So the recording said
maybe 15.
The recording said there's going to be an explosion in 15 minutes. You think there were an additional 15 minutes after that?
Mm-hmm. I do. Somewhere around that, 10, 12, or 15 minutes, something like that. And and clearly what they were doing, whoever did this, and I listened to a little bit of your interview with your previous couple of guests, they were warning. They were trying to warn people to get out. The gunshots, because I'll tell you this, the message that was being played was played at a volume that I probably would not have heard it.
Yeah.
So it was the gunshots that woke me up.
Would it surprise?
And woke everybody else up.
There's been some discussion about whether the gunshots were actual gunshots or whether they were part of the recording. Do you have any sense?
Right, and I don't know.
Okay.
I know that it was really, really loud.
Yep.
The gunshots were very loud.
Well, Betsy, I'm so glad that you and your family got out and are doing okay, and I wish you the best.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
And I have to say that it's really strange to go to bed on Christmas Eve and then get ready to go to bed on Christmas Day. And I've talked to Anderson Cooper.
Well, there's a lot stranger things that have happened to you today than talking to me, but I understand the sentiment. Betsy,
I've lost my home, lost my business, all that kind of stuff. So, but hey, that's happened to Nashville, and I want to give a real shout out to the first responders. My gosh, they're down there. That thing is talking. It's who knows what's going to happen. And they don't run away; they run to danger. And I'm very, very grateful to them for that. Nashville's had a hell of a year.
Yeah, it's
between the tornado, the pandemic, it's just been something.
Well, it's a tough town, and it's going to bounce back. But this is
that's right. We got heart.
Yeah, no doubt. Betsy, I appreciate it. You take care of your